Cookery is not chemistry, it is an art. It relies on instinct and taste rather than exact measurements. These are the words of Marcel Bullerstein. The best dishes often rely on a few core ingredients and a lot of instinct. My name is Julian McCarthy. I'm an artist, a cook, a trainee chef, trained in the field of contemporary fine art and French cuisine. When I'm not in the heat of service, I spend my days experimenting with ingredients and painting. I find our ingredients fascinating. So many varieties, so many different cultures that use them. So versatile and so exciting. Food is a transient experience. To serve a loved one a dish is on par to reading out a piece of poetry loud. Food plays with our five senses. It's truly a fascinating experience that can only be compared to the arts, such as music, film and poetry. Jack B. Yeats, born August 29th, 1971, is an Irish artist that fascinates and inspires me. Born to the artists John Butler Yeats and Suzanne Yeats in London, Jack had a rather mobile life, moving around with his family from London to Dublin to Sligo. Unlike his father who struggled to be an artist, Jack found himself working as a black and white illustrator for various journalistic publications. In this move to Ireland, we begin to see Jack use oil paints. Previous to this, he was using watercolours and made some sort of a name for himself over in London. But by 1920, Jack had fleshed out his style with pieces like An Island's Funeral, with figurative work that was more free-flowing and expressive. His most experimental work was in the 1940s, as he ventured onto much bigger canvases and started taking a more expressionist tone to his work. The expressionist movement was led by artists like Edvard Munch, Wally Kandinsky and Egon Schiele. The tomato finds purpose in this dish because of Yeats's painting Power Station. Painted in 1930, Yeats uses subtle red to depict the chimneys right behind me, which was once one chimney at the time, known as Pigeon House, with a long red structure, giving us an impression on what it is. Yeats's subtle use of red in this painting is a prime example of how he can allude to structures in an impressionistic way. I want to encapsulate this in my dish, to take inspiration from it, and to find different ways to use red where it doesn't overpower the main piece. So now that we've looked at Yeats, it's time to think about the ingredients and what we're going to make. Right in front of me, I have potatoes, tomatoes, lemon, garlic, some butter that's unsalted, some dried chives and tarragon, and some fresh parsley, with also a kilogram of hake. We're going to start off by making matchstick cuts and square cuts of the tomato, and then proceed to soak them in lemon. After that, we're going to make some wild parsley mash, and then we're going to fry the hake in some butter, tarragon and chives with a little hint of garlic to bring out some more exciting flavours. You always want to keep the teeth on your knife straight. Using a blunt knife is no good. Perfect. So before we do anything else, first I'm going to put on my potatoes. I've had them soaking in water and they're prepared already. I'm going to hard boil them because we're going to make a mash out of them. So as a fan of Mexican food, as most people are, I find it interesting how they soak their onions in lemon. With the prepared tomato that we just cooked, I'm going to soak them in some lemon juice and leave them sit for the duration that it takes for us to prepare this dish. Some people would go out of their way and soak them overnight. We'll just give it a wrap of cling film and throw it into the fridge until we need it. So the potatoes are boiling away. Right now we have water preheated, close to a boil. I'm going to blanch our parsley to give it a much more vibrant green for when we mix it into the mashed potatoes. When I'm in the kitchen and we're blanching anything. We have a nice little container that makes it a lot easier. But for the purpose of home cooking, we're just going to use a sieve-like spatula and let them soak for a quick minute and take them out and stir them into a bowl. Blanching is very easy, but when doing at home, if you don't have the right devices, it's easier just to do it by small bit and small bit. Look at the difference in green. The difference in that green. We said at the start of this that, you know, cookery isn't a chemistry. It kind of is, but at the same time, it isn't. It's a lot of instinct. Do I know what I'm doing? Could I tell you the science behind it? No. Do I like what I'm doing? And do I like the effect that it gives to a dish? Yeah. And that's the main thing. Like when you're cooking, you know, you're not putting on a lab coat. You're putting on an apron, or you're not even putting on an apron, and you're making something tasty that looks nice. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. Now that we have that done, we're gonna make the puree for the mashed potatoes. Puree is very simple. It's your blanched parsley and some cold water. You just blitz it in the blender, add a little bit of salt. Bob's your uncle, Nancy is your aunt. You can see there why we blanch it. What was once a kind of dull green has now become very vibrant. Give it a nice effect when we puree it and mix it into the mashed potatoes. A really nice green. Similar to Yates's work too, in a sense. A real painterly green. So we throw our parsley in. Obviously I'm not using too much because I'm only making a small dish, but you use as much as you need. If you want it to be extremely parsley tasting, you'd add more. I usually add water up until the point where I start to see the majority of the parsley floating. And salt, again, you know, it's not a chemistry. You add as much as you think you'll need. Probably add a little bit more. Now, we just let it blend. Oh, that's strong. Look at that. Beautiful. So when cooking anything, you want a hot pan. Whenever you're cooking anything, you want a heavy pan, a thick pan, so it contains the heat a lot better. On a medium heat, just to start to heat up, I'm gonna add some butter. Just to get it nice and moist around the pan before we add our fish. As the butter begins to melt, I'm gonna add some garlic. Now it's only crushed, I didn't cut it up, because we're going to use it to flavour the butter. We're not even going to use it when dressing the plate. We're going to baste the fish in what this butter sauce is going to become, with the mixed dried tarragon and chives. We're just going to let this sit, melt down, get to a nice heat, and then we're just going to pop the fish in. We're going to let it cook for a few seconds on its skin, pop it over and cook it the whole way through, from the bottom up. So now that we have our potatoes cooked, it's very simple. Just some butter, get it nice and creamy. Add some of our puree and just start mashing away. So now that we have the potatoes done, it's very simple. Taste them. See if they're up to your satisfaction. Add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, whatever you feel you need. That's the main thing. I'm going to let these potatoes sit for a bit. I like to make my potatoes very velvety. Lots of butter, sometimes milk. As I've been working in the kitchen, I've learned the more butter, the better. It's the first thing and the last thing to go in the sauce, and it's always the best thing of the dish. So now it's just frying the hake. So our butter is melted down. Our garlic is sweating about. They're dancing around in the pan. I'm gonna add our tarragon and chives, just to get them mixed around before I add the fish. And then just our fillet of hake. Just leave that, turn up the heat a little bit more, and let that cook for a bit. That's it, cooked. We'll leave that sitting in the pan and just kind of keep the heat running through. So our hake is just finished cooking. I have it still sitting in the pan, just letting some more of that heat go through it. It's time to dress the plate. So I'm gonna get the potatoes really nice. We got our parsley mash that I'm gonna smack down in the center of the plate. Kind of flatten out. This is the base, almost like the base of Yeats's paintings. I'm just gonna give it a nice little design as I flatten out, just to give some texture to the dish. The great thing about cooking is it really brings out the perfectionist in you, you know. When I'm painting, I'm a lot more freer about things not being on center, but when it comes to a good dish, everything needs to look perfect. The plate that I'm using is a plate that I made from a bog tree. I'm just getting the tomatoes now, nice and ready. Yeah, the plate is made from a bog tree. I used tung oil on it, which is a food safe oil, comes from Asia. And basically sanded down the plate, made it nice and flat, and cured it with the tung oil over a 2-day process. And I just think it really brings out this kind of painterly aspect of food and art, and kind of treating it like an art form instead of a chemistry, as we previously mentioned. So now that I have this laid out, I'm going to use my spatula. I'm just going to flip the fish over, get on its flesh side, and bring it over to the plate. You want to be careful now because it's going to be dripping in butter sauce. I'm just going to lightly put it on, let it slide off onto it. I'm then going to get the pan and my spoon. I'm just going to get a bit of that sauce, you know, not let it go to waste. It's kind of browned now, it's nice golden colour. You can see a bit of the tarragon still active in it. When making a sauce, you want to make sure that you're not burning down everything. It's finding the right temperature between hot and medium heat, because the more heat that's in it, you lose your garlic. Your garlic starts to burn down, and I often see it early on in cooking, people treating it. I was like that myself. But when you find the perfect temperature, your herbs are still intact. They still have their green to them. They still have their flavour. The sauce is much more richer in taste, in my opinion. So we get the lemon soaked. So I've taken the lemon soaked tomatoes out from the fridge, and I'm going to use the matchstick type shapes to just kind of dress along, reminiscent of Poolbeg chimneys and Power Station by Yeats. This is where the influence of Yeats really comes in, where we have the white figure, the platform of the dish being green and a bit of nature, showing his interest in nature, and then the subtle hints of red referencing his paintings like Power Station. So now that I have them dressed across, I'm going to use some of the little squares, just kind of giving it some body on its side, some texture. They're all hiding on me, swimming in the lemon juice. Now, you could cook your tomatoes and eat this with a lemon slice if you want, but
I just felt very intrigued that, sorry, restart that. You could cook your tomato, you know, and have a lemon slice with it if you want. You could cook your tomato and have a lemon slice with it if you want. It's really up to you. I just thought aesthetically, in reference to a painting, it would look nice to have green, white and red. It's kind of reimagining an Irish dish too when we think about it, you know, the parsley, the potatoes and the hake, and taking a new twist on it. In tune with Yeats and his love for Ireland and nature. I hope this dish is kind of representing Ireland as a cuisine, to show our interest in aspects of food, that we're not just coddle or fish and chips. We're more than that. We have exciting dishes, and if you do make this at home and you do try it, I hope you do soak your tomatoes in lemon and see how they react with the parsley mash and the tarragon based fish, and see how they kind of pair together and dance together in your taste buds. Right, so that's a wrap. Just remember, when you're cooking, add as much as you like. It's not a chemistry, it's an art form. I like to consider this my art. You know, my paintings are a pastime, they're an escape, they're an excuse to be by myself. But my cooking, I like to consider that my art, my creative process. I'd like to ask the cameraman Ian to come back and have a bit with me, because it's the two of us in this. Two of us have gone out of our way to do this. And yeah, just make sure you get a bit of that tomato. A bit. You don't like tomato? Oh man, you still have to eat tomato. It doesn't even taste like tomato, it tastes like lemon. Oh. Yeah, it's good.
That's very good.
Thank you, thank you.
What's the name of the show again? As much as it takes.
As much as you like.
As much as you like.
Remember me when I'm gone away, gone far away into the silent land, when you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I have turned to go, yet turning stay. Remember me when no more, day by day, you tell me of our future that you planned. Only remember me, you'll understand. It will be late to counsel then or pray, yet if you should forget me for a while, and afterwards, remember, do not grieve.